Diablo 4 Season 3 is just now launching, and there's some pretty big changes. So let's talk about what exactly the classes each have to offer for Season 3. Now, we know a major change is Overpower is getting nerfed by 50%, and that was a large part of the reason you would play the classes in Season 2. So let's talk about what each class has to offer, and at least one reason to play that class for each of these seasons, starting for Barbarian. So for Season 3, Barbarian is going to have a massive buff for charge. So if a charge barb is something you enjoy playing in D3 or it sounds interesting to you, it's literally getting a 900% increase from 0.25 to 2.5, which is a times 10 or a 900% increase. So charge barb, they literally use the stonk meme of going to the moon for charge barb. So this is a primary reason to actually try this. We have leap base damage is being increased as well, but really, if you're thinking about Barbarian, I still think Barbarian is arguably going to be the strongest class for Season 3, and we have an entirely new build that was basically not viable in the previous season. So if you're interested in Barbarian, highly recommend it for the Charge Barb variant. They had some other changes in here, some nerfs to Overpower, for instance, but overall, Barbarian got away with not getting nerfed to the ground, and they have continually been either the strongest or one of the strongest to the point of like almost bugged level of classes in the game. So if you're looking to play a strong class with a new build and the skill that got buffed the most out of any skill in the game going into Diablo 4 Season 3, that is going to be your Barbarian, particularly that Charge Barb variant. Now we're going to go to my personal favorite class. That is, of course, going to be the Druid. Now, the Druid's got some new unique items here. We got some new items, the Unsung Ascetic Wraps, which is Lightning Storm. So this is one reason, is the new Lightning Storm build. This isn't going to be the reason I'm going to tell you. I think there's a better reason, but Lightning Storm build itself is probably going to be pretty fun to play. You hit the lightning, you can actually strike twice with the lightning if you get a critical strike. So if you were wanting to play sort of a caster style Druid before, but you didn't really get to do the Lightning Storm, and you felt pigeonholed to only doing the tornadoes on the Druid, werewolf tornado type of Druid, the Lightning Storm variant is going to be one such reason. But I think there's a better reason, which is going to be the Rabies variant. So now Rabies affects an enemy is reducing its cooldown by 0.3 to 0.6. This cooldown reduction is tripled when affecting elites. So we have a new utility style buff for Rabies, but that's not it. Enhanced Rabies here as well. Maximum damage bonus increased from 30 to 60%. That is a double buff on enhanced Rabies as well. So if you were previously wanting to do that dot style spreading, infection style of build, we now have a Rabies style Druid that's going to be viable as well. But there's multiple changes to other abilities as well, and you can see Twister damage increase, lightning damage increase. So we do have multiple changes across the board when it comes to caster style. But really it boils down to Druid. There's two major changes. Rabies if you wanted to play Rabies before, or casting with the Lightning Storm or Tornado style variant. I think that these are going to be two primary reasons to play a Druid in Season 3. I think they're going to be perfectly fine, be able to clear most of the things. Overpower got nerfed, so maybe your Werebear Pulverized style is going to be a little worse than it was in Season 2, but Overpower got nerfed across the board for everybody. So for me and mine, I'm going to be playing Druid, I think, because I really want to try out the Rabies, and I always want to play a caster style Druid. If those sound appealing to you, that is a reason to play Druid going into Season 3. Also, just a quick note here, Avian Wrath, which is the critical strike bonus from Spirit Boons, is now multiplicative instead of additive. I think this is one sneaky bonus that maybe be getting slept on. This is an additional multiplicative bonus that was not previously on the Druid that could be quite good. And if you're thinking about playing Companions, they got a buff, but let's be honest, still not going to be the best build in the game. Going from 80% to 120% doesn't suddenly make a viable Companion build, but there is a small bonus to the Companion Druid. Now, one of the more interesting changes or new builds coming to the game in Season 3 is going to be the Necromancer. Now, the Necromancer is getting this Bone Spirit change. They're getting a new offensive aspect that allows a casting Bone Spirit launches Bone Splinters in all direction, dealing increased, and this is an X, that's multiplicative, increased damage and generating essence. That's not all they're getting for Bone Spirit, however. Bone Spirit from the Dreadful Bone Spirit now also restores 30% of your maximum essence instead of a flat 30. And now, if you don't know the way Bone Spirit works, the more essence you have, the more damage it does. So this actually will factually increase the total amount of essence, allowing you to sort of recast this ability with more damage to get that maximum essence as well. And I know this isn't Uber, but the Melted Heart of Salag actually has a change going into the next season that makes it where instead of you gain 30 maximum resource, you now gain 60 maximum resource. Now there's some changes to the defensive properties, but what we care about with Bone Spirit is having more maximum resource. That's how we get more damage. So having an increase in your maximum resource paired with what we were talking about earlier with that maximum resource gain, that's actually going to be kind of interesting for a Bone Spirit build. So if you're looking for maybe a little bit of a chase goal, Bone Spirit might be something you're interested in. Also, this might be a bit of a troll build, but Bone Golem active ability now grants Golem Storms equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt. Now, I have tried every single season and failed every single season to make a really good Thorn build work for Necromancer that's not entirely troll. However, we are getting a slight change, we'll say, to the way that Thorn Summon Necromancer will work. So if you're interested in Golems before, Golems are actually having a significant change. So we have a Bone Spirit focus as well as a Golem changes. I'm going to say, I don't know if it's necessarily a focus. Also, speaking of essence gain for Bone Spirit, one more time, this is a new change to the way Swelling Curse works. Bone Spirit's critical strike chance is increased by 15 to 25%, and your maximum essence is increased by 2 for each enemy hit. So we have a lot of changes to the way you acquire essence, which is going to continue to scale that Bone Spirit's repetition in being casted. I would imagine that Bone Spirit in Season 3 will be a fun, one-shot, hopefully easier to refill style of gameplay. So I'm tempted, if I wasn't going to be doing a Druid, I would probably be trying out the Bone Spirit Necromancer. In fact, I'll probably try both this season. Now, Rogue is one word. In my opinion, it is stable. In terms of all of the seasons in Diablo 4, Rogue has tended to be the most stable class. If what you want is a class that is just good across the board, fast to leveling, and fun to play, fast action, fast mechanics, that's always the Rogue no matter what season we're talking about. But this season, they have some changes and some new items that are interesting. Particularly, I like this one, which is the Resistance Assailants aspect, which is a defensive one. Breaking Concealing grants 10% resistance and 10% maximum resistance to all elements for 4 seconds. Killing an elite enemy reduces the concealment cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. So if that sounds interesting, you conceal, unconceal, become tanky, do your damage, go back into concealment. That is sort of the gameplay style here. There's also a significant amount of changes throughout this. You're going to see a lot of code imbuement, blended code imbuement. You're going to see a lot of imbuements and changes related to, here we go, Chilling Weights, another one related to the code style of gameplay. So for me, if you were interested in Rogue, but haven't tried the code imbuement style, this might be the season for you. Or if you're looking for a class that is fairly reliable, again, no matter what season you're playing, in my opinion, Rogue is one of the fastest clears, a good starter class. You can acquire your aspects, etc. I think Rogue is just going to be another staple, like just solid, middle tier, good class throughout season 3. One warning, however, with it is if you wanted to play Twisting Blades, again, there are changes here to Twisting Blades. You can see now Twisting Blades orbit for a short time after they return to you, dealing 20 to 30% of Twisting Blades return damage per hit. It used to scale based upon the distance the blade returns. So if you like to stab and then dash as far away as possible to get that bonus damage, that's actually a change with Twisted Blades going into Season 3. So that would be a reason to not play the Rogue if you like that style of gameplay. However, Rogues in general are going to have other moves be viable. It looks like there's changes to Shadow View, Code Imbuement. So if you were kind of sick of just Poison Rogue, Poison Rogue, Poison Rogue, and you wanted to try something different, but you wanted to try Rogue again, that would be your play for this season. Now, for Season 3, I think the Sorcerer has one primary focus, for me at least, that I would say is a reason to play Sorcerer going into Season 3. That is the new Starfall Coronet. Meteor now has 2 charges and 11 to 6 seconds. This is a wide cooldown spread, by the way. So now you're going to really make sure you get the correct one of these. You're going to want a 6-second cooldown farm in this aspect. That's what you're going to be farming for. But instead of a mana cost, drops 3 additional meteors around the target. Meteor's enhancement effect and enhanced meteor drop 1 additional meteor. So this is now a meteor style build. So if what you were really hoping for before was sort of a rainfall of meteors, a meteor build is a primary reason to play Sorcerer in Season 3. Also, as another note, if you were struggling with getting vulnerability on your Sorcerer before, now Lightning Spear critical strikes now apply vulnerable for 3 seconds, so they have an additional way of applying vulnerable. This was a common complaint before. Everyone would just take Frost Nova in order to get vulnerability because you really didn't have a way of getting it otherwise. Couple of nice changes here as well to the Paragons. For instance, we have Elemental Summoner. The conjuration damage bonus is increased with both Fire, Lightning, and Code. So if you prefer the Elemental style of gameplay, that will be in your favor, as well as Burning Instinct. The amount of intelligence required for bonus burning damage reduced from 75 to 25. This is a 3x multiplier bonus. If you're going to ask me to rank which class I'm the most excited by, it's going to be number 1 for the Druid, because I think Rabies hasn't really had a chance to hit its mark yet in Diablo 4, and Season 3 might be that opportunity. Number 2 for me is going to be the Bone Spirit Necromancer, as I think the new abilities and the changes to Bone Spirit might actually make that quite good. Number 3 looks like the Meteorite Sorcerer, as I think that would be quite a bit of fun. You just got to farm a bit to get that right legendary that has the cooldown of 6 seconds as opposed to 11 seconds. That's a pretty big gap there, so you got to get a pretty good roll on that new, I believe it's a new unique item, as a matter of fact. Number 4 is then going to be the Charged Barbarian, as I think Charged Barbarian's probably going to be potentially meta. They themselves are kind of stating they believe it will be. A 900% increase, or a 10x in basically multiplier, and what it used to be is a massive number change. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. The number 5 for me is going to be Rogue, because while there's new builds available, I feel like they just sort of made some things viable that weren't really necessarily viable before, and I've never really been super excited by the Rogue in particular. None of the new items really make me want to try it out too much, and the Concealment is more of a defensive property as opposed to like the Sorcerer, super exciting with an offensive property. At least that's how I feel about it currently. So Season 3 is coming. Play the class you want to play. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like if you want to. If not, don't worry about it, and I'll see you in game.